controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick, knowledge, deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? This is your brother Shabazz. We in the house. It's Thursday, 5 p.m. Not on the dot, but it's 5 p.m. Hoping we gonna get things started. I hope y'all can hear me. Had to do a couple of new things with the mic. Not sure if they working. If you can't hear me on, here we go with this multi-unit situation I'm doing. If you can hear me on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, let me know. You can hear me on Instagram. If you can hear me on TikTok, let me know. But what's going on? This is your brother Shabazz. You are now tuned into The Proper Perspective. We talk about Tuskegee. No mercy. That's what I should have started with. It's going to be a no mercy day. Kind of, sort of, maybe not. No, for real, no mercy. So we talk about bonnets and durags. We really up in arms for bonnets and durags. No mercy. That's what we starting with. No mercy on dress codes. No mercy on the mythology of delineation. No mercy on the mythology of disaggregation. That's the new term. It ain't really new. It's out there. It's been out there just as long as delineation has been out there. It's a combo punch from the twin camp of the xenophobic hate brigade. So delineation comes from the ADOS community. No, I'm sorry. Delineation comes from the FBA community. Disaggregation comes from the ADOS community. But first, before we get there, we're going to talk about Tuskegee. Now, I feel for the students. I think I'm taking the student side. I might not though. Like, I want to take the student side. But well, let me just begin with, I wrote up this piece. Not a poem, not a spoken word, I just wrote this down. So let me begin by saying this. I stand with the students. I stand with students unequivocally, unapologetically, and unconditionally. I stand with this. Because what is happening at Tuskegee University right now is it's not a dress code debate. It's a moral crisis. It's an assault on the very soul Black expression. And I am not being dramatic. I'm being historically literate. When I heard that Tuskegee, the institution built by the hands of the formerly enslaved, the institution of Booker T. Washington, up from slavery. He created from the dirt. He got it out the mud. When I heard that they had the audacity to tell a young Black woman that she can wear a bonnet to an 8 a.m. lecture about economics, I wept. I cried a river like Oshun worth of tears. And I wept some more. And I wept because I realized Oshun might be wearing a bonnet too. They would even ban Oshun. I cried, family. I cried for me. I cried for my progeny. I cried for the bonnet. I cried for the woman who wants it, who wants to wear it. I wept for the bonnet. I wept for what the bonnet represents. Because you see, a bonnet is not just fabric. A bonnet is a flag. It's a declaration. A bonnet says, I exist and I am comfortable. And I refuse to perform respectability politics for the comfort of the oppressed or their minions. And after all, even with a do-rag, I mean, what is a do-rag? It's nothing but a crown, family. A do-rag is a crown. And what is a crown, family? It's a, if not a do-rag, what crown can we wear? Uh-oh. Seems like Olokun might be a little mad at me. We are all kings and queens, are we not? Kings and queens don't tuck in their shirts. What is a pair? We got some bad situations going on. I guess I'm gonna have to turn it off today. Hey, it is what it is. And why can't we wear bedroom slippers? I mean, bedroom slippers are just sandals of liberation. And these administrators, these gatekeepers, these Pharisees of Pharaoh, they used to believe that we must dress for the job we want. Why would we want to do that? Well, I ask you even more specifically, what job? What job is worth more than my right to roll out of bed at 7:55 a.m. and walk directly into a lecture hall without altering a single thread of my nocturnal appearance? They say, wear a business suit. I say, why should I? And more importantly, when should I? Because even if I buy one now as an entering freshman, I gotta dry clean it, and that costs money. And dry cleaning is just another colonialism trick. Why must I conform to the aesthetic of the very system that has historically excluded me? It's not as though I should practice now for a cubicle future of a business environment conformity. Why must I mirror the oppressor in order to be taken seriously? If a white man can walk into a boardroom in a Patagonia vest and be called visionary, I should be allowed to wear a Snuggie and still be called a doctor. The Snuggie is the great equalizer. They speak of professionalism, but professionalism is a social contract. Y'all know that. Just like race, just like money. It's a weapon of the bourgeoisie. It's a tool designed to keep the unwashed masses literally unwashed. In some cases, completely barred from accessing the halls of power. Who would want to walk those? And let's be honest about the real issue here. They say, we're just asking for basic decorum. But we all know what they're saying. They're saying, your hair is not acceptable. And since your hair is insulting, what we say is, well, that's why we wear the bonnet. So your eyes don't have to suffer the sight of God's follicular crown. They say your sleepwear is not acceptable. And we say, you, sir, are not acceptable. Unless you look like a J. Crew catalog from 1998. And I say, well, I would rather look like a TJ Maxx clearance rack than a corporate brochure. I think that's what I say. Because I refuse. I refuse to be made acceptable. I refuse to let Tuskegee or any HBCU on whatever sacred ground upon which they stand become a staging ground for the politics of respectability. That is the politics that told our grandmothers that they had to straighten their hair, and they did it. That is the politics that told our grandfathers they couldn't wear their hats indoors, and they didn't. That is the politics that told us all, be less black and you will be more successful. And we tried. We strived. We strived to be as un-black. We strived to be as all-American as we possibly could be. Hell, many of us, some of us even detached from our African roots to show the world that we could be chocolate-covered Europeans, Negropeans. They want us to dress the job we want. They want us to dress a job that we want. But I don't want a job. I want a kingdom. And kingdoms don't have dress codes. They have court gestures, and I will be the jester in my bonnet. Or she will be the jester in her bonnet. I will be the jester in my durag. So I say, let me be unsuccessful. Let me be unemployed. Let me be unhireable. Just take my money. And let me sleep through my class. Let me sit through my classes in my sleep gear. Because at least I will be free. Free from the tyranny of blazer. Free from the oppression of the dreaded dress shoe. Free from the cruel and unusual punishment of geopolitical oppression. And having to tuck in a shirt tail. I need to be free from buttons and clasps and zippers and any fastener that requires fine motor skills at 10 a.m. Haven't even had my coffee yet. So yes, I'm with the students. I stand with every young person who looked at a dress code and said, you will not police my body. You will not police my hair. You will not police my comfort. And if that means I fail Econ 101, so be it. Better to fail with integrity than to pass in a tie, a necktie, a bow tie. Better to be comfortable in failure than uncomfortable with success. It is much better to be free. A luta continua, viva la revolución, comrades. That's what I say. I stand with this. Now, if you feel me, if you hear me, drop something in the comments on YouTube. Peace to Mr. K, who says, peace to the Terminator. Thank you for showing up, my good dear brother. Shout out to Seaver Niche on Instagram. Shout out to everybody on TikTok. So y'all heard me. I stand with the students. Kind of, sort of. So, y'all heard the news. Tuskegee ain't letting you come up in there any which way. Now, you haven't figured it out. Maybe you have. That was my satire. I feel like I gotta explain it because last time I did satire, people came at me all kind of ways. So I was playing. I'm just joking around. That was what they call a caricature. That's the version of this argument that many of you are either making, participating in, or at least passively watching. So you may have seen these kinds of comments all on the timeline, dialed up by me for satire purposes. So we can actually see this, the shape of it. Now, I use satire. I love satire because satire is a type of comedy that draws attention to bad behavior, that makes fun of bad behavior so as to encourage people to change. But again, that's my soapbox, my teaching moment. Let me tell you what's real about this Tuskegee thing. What's actually in the memo. And some of you may have already gotten through all of the malarkey to understand it. But I'm gonna at least say this so you'll know where I land. Now, in all honesty, I do genuinely, I see both sides. And I think most of the discourse right now is arguing about parts of the policy that are not necessarily the most important parts. I say that for a reason. Shout out to PH Rides, who says, here with you, dear brother. Thank you. Appreciate that. What was that? So Tuskegee University. Now everybody's on it, so it's not a rumor. It's not a hoax. But President Dr. Mark A. Brown, he sent a message to parents of incoming students, the freshman class. In it, in part, he said bonnets, durags, and bedroom shoes are banned in classrooms. They're banned in dining facilities. They're banned at university events. He went on to say revealing clothing is banned in classrooms, dining areas, and official events like convocation. Students are expected to arrive on campus with a business suit and appropriate shoes for professional meetings. And it says faculty is authorized to enforce it. Now, again, I don't see the problem. I understand that there's a problem, but I don't quite see it. Now, a verbatim quote was, the goal here is not meant to restrict students from enjoying the Tuskegee experience, but to prepare them with a solid foundation for the workforce that they will enter once they leave Tuskegee. So I think that's a pretty honorable goal. Now, I saw this other video. I'm going to see if I can share video. A good brother, a cool brother, somebody that I respect, had something to say. So let's see where this is, and we can bring that to the front. Hopefully this pulls up.
Tuskegee.
All right, so let's pause for a second. Bring this onto the screen. So y'all can see the good brother Godfrey. Godfrey has something to say about this. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Let me hit that play button again.
University has banned bonnets and durags. And there's been a lot of different comments. I'm looking at the comments. People are applauding it. Some people are not. And of course, Tuskegee University, which is one of the most historical HBCUs, Tuskegee Airmen. You know what I mean? Come on. You got Lionel Richie went to Tuskegee University, and it was founded by Booker T. Washington. You know, he has a book called Up From Slavery, which I read in college. And my thing about this, it's, you know, there's a lot of different comments. And this is my theory about what the faculty is thinking, that it represents ghetto. You know, that they don't want to see that because it represents, you know, girls fighting in Walmart, dudes on the corner talking crazy, making black people. It's all about image. I understand, like, working hard on the black image because, you know, the black image is always negative all around the world. It's so much anti-blackness, especially black American. They always think that everybody's a thug, everybody, even in this day and age when black folks have accomplished so much, when black women have they're most educated in America, the inventions of black America.
So okay, so I'm gonna pause it for a hot second right there. Y'all hear the brother? And I say shout out to Godfrey. I know there's some FBA goons still mad at him and trying to get him to take a knee. That's not how I played it. I'm not of that type. I think Godfrey is cool. I like some of the points that he makes, but I still got to do maybe just a little bit of pushback. For one reason is because people act like the Tuskegee University dress code, new policy, whatever. They act like this was invented out of thin air. And so even Godfrey's comments, they act like, I mean, yes, it's in the news because Tuskegee did something slightly different and they put everybody on notice. But if you go look through other HBCUs in particular, Hampton University, Virginia Union University, North Carolina Central University, you'll find much of the same stuff. On Hampton's official page, they say durags, stocking caps, skull caps, bonnets, scarves, and bandanas. I think they went further. Are prohibited at all times on the campus of Hampton University, except in the privacy of the students' living quarters. So this is something completely not new, completely not out of the norm. That's Hampton. Virginia Union University says students and their guests who do not adhere to the dress code. Wait a minute, slow down. What? Students and their guests who do not adhere to the dress code may be denied access to university services, including but not limited to the classroom, the cafeteria, and other academic buildings. When you go to universities, when you go to HCUs, there's always a dress code. There's always been a dress code. Now, maybe of recent, maybe they were getting a little loose. But for some reason, they all seem to be, well, they all put it on paper. Because he said, look, we're going to make sure we start enforcing this. And so again, Hampton, Virginia Union, I mean, their language is not even identical. Their language is a little bit more strict. So no, Tuskegee isn't writing new rules. They may be recommitting themselves to enforcing the old ones. But here's the real story. These rules existed, like I said, they've always been in effect. They've always been on paper. Over 2 decades. Yes, enforcement may have drifted outside of certain schools. If you went into Howard, Virginia Union, if you went into North Carolina, if you went to Tuskegee and you declared your major as business, well, you was hit with these same rules. And when you go to the formal convocations, you get hit with these same rules. Everywhere else, including Tuskegee, the informal boundary, perhaps it quietly disappeared for a while. Well, you got a new president, a new sheriff in town. So what's happening now is administration is deciding, look, we're going to close the gap. We're going to fix some things. And that's what actually is, yeah, I understand that will generate some new tension. It's the newness of it. It's not the rule per se. And so all across, social media, you'll see things. I found a few. Somebody said, Tuskegee is trying to enforce a dress code, but I already bought clothes violating it. Okay, well, then make sure you don't wear those clothes to the university. Nobody said you got to take them back. Somebody said, y'all new kids something different. Now, this might sound like me. It ain't me, though, family. Somebody said, y'all new kids something different. We wouldn't even dare think of wearing pajamas. It was always dressed to impress. That's where the idea of black excellence came from. So I saw another comment. I get the intention, as I do. Again, this ain't me. I'm reading some comments from different social media and different news. I get the intention, but black excellence is not a dress code. We don't need to cosplay white professionalism just to prove we belong. Now that's an interesting one. I disagree with that one. I like how it's worded, but I disagree that dressing in a professional manner is cosplaying corporate white professionalism. And I disagree that asking or demanding people to dress in a professional manner is done to prove we belong. So I too get the intention. The intention is black excellence, and black excellence is manifested in how you dress. Black excellence is part of everything that we do. So the idea that telling somebody you can't wear a bonnet when you come to class, that's not an offense to black excellence. That is the upholding of black excellence. Now, I know anger. And the anger is, I think consciously said something. I was trying to pull up his, but I ran out of time, family. So, but I will say this, like the brother that said, I already bought my clothes and I didn't buy none of that. There's other people making the argument that suits cost too much. I'm like, look, listen here. Let's try to get a couple of things straight. This whole argument, the students can't afford suits. I got no mercy for you. How about that? That argument doesn't hold up. Not when you look at what brothers and sisters like to wear. Not when you look at the designer sneakers, the branded hoodies, the $40 to $80 bonnets, the $50 to $60 slides. I mean, now, and I know ain't nobody gonna take me seriously, but you could carry yourself to Goodwill and get a business suit for $7. So I can't afford it, don't really fly. And aside from that, if you literally are a student at Tuskegee, or you're one of the ones getting ready to go to Tuskegee, well, Tuskegee got their own community closet. I think they call it Tiger. What was it that they called it? I forgot what it was called. Tuskegee runs a Golden Tiger community closet. So students that don't have access, can't afford, what have you, couldn't find, what have you, there is a remedy. That's all you got to do. So again, if the students want, now here's what I will say though, I'm still trying to stay on the student side. If students want the fight that actually has some legs, I would say you should focus on the cell phone policy, not the clothing one. You ain't got a lot of wins on the clothing policy. Because a HBCU, a university, a college, they well within their rights to say, look, we gonna model certain behaviors. And this is a part of being professional. Now, part of the Tuskegee policy is a total device restriction, at least in the classroom. Now, you got a little bit more leeway. You got a stronger argument if you want to go against that. But even there, I would say total device restriction is still part of the adult professional work environment in some jobs, not all, but in some jobs. Now, it's interesting to know many African Americans who go to college, PWI or African or HBCUs, one of maybe sort of side secret job avenues is to work for the government. Working for the government has been a long-standing path to African American upliftment. It's one of the reasons Trump wanted to fire 500,000 black women or 500,000 African Americans. But when you work for the government, there are secure facilities, there are manufacturing floors, there are healthcare settings, there are financial trading floors, and that ain't even government necessarily. All of these professional work environments will tell you no phones. So it's still mirroring what you're going to encounter in the work world. So no, 50 minutes in a classroom to listen to a lecture is not belittling you. It's not curtailing you. It's not turning you into a child. It's not infantilizing you. It's the same boundary that most working adults already live under. So again, all of this hoopla is a bit interesting. I like what Lord of Slaughter said. The answer, because some people have said this is about protective styles. I don't necessarily buy it, but the answer is an African style head wrap. Now I know if you FBA, I know that just burns your soul. But other than that, the answer is literally right there. What our ancestors used to do, they protected their hair by wearing an African styled head wrap. Case closed, problem solved. Thank you for that, Lord of Slaughter. Shabaka 4555, shout out, one love, peace and power, pop perspective, tell the people the truth. Much respect, brother. Thank you for that. Thank you, brother. So again, now I was gonna pull up this Reddit conversation because I thought the Reddit conversation was interesting. Now watch, I can't find it. There we go. So let me see if I can add this to the screen. So here we go. Y'all see the pictures? Y'all see the Reddit page? Once I find it again. Oh, here we go. So is Tuskegee's new dress code actually helping students? Why the update misses the mark? Now, again, this is very interesting. I'm not saying that I'm 100% on board with the ban. I might be 80, 70, 75 to 80%. So you can see, you know, and the person said, I want to open up a discussion on Tuskegee's updated policy. Now, they make some very good points. Point one, zero link to academic success. They say there's no research. There's no research that dressing up raises your GPA. Okay, true. There's no research that dressing up improves your test scores. Students at PWIs are pulling 4.0s in hoodies and slides every single day. Now, I'll give you that. I don't disagree with that. That's factually accurate. There's no peer-reviewed study trying to show and prove that a dress code has a direct causal improvement to academic performance. But here's the thing. That's not what Tuskegee or any other HBCU is trying to say or prove. The Tuskegee memo doesn't say that. Dr. Brown's language is about workforce readiness. It's not about the GPA. So this point wins the argument that nobody's making. Now, point two, denying paid food for services. You know, I'm a little bit more with you. I would say turning away paying students from an 8 a.m. breakfast over flip-flops or a durag, that seems a little wrong to me. Now, the actual policy, as reported, is about what you wear in the dining hall. It's not whether you eat at all. What do you mean by that? Well, if you accidentally stumble out of bed and find yourself at the dining hall and you get turned away, you're not revoked. You're not banned. You can go back to your room and dress accordingly. If you got documentation showing students getting turned away, literally, if you got documentation showing students being told you can never come back in here because you dressed wrong one day, now you got something. But you don't have that. Hell, you can't have that because school ain't started yet. But again, if you are told beforehand you have to dress a certain way or you cannot dress a certain way, once you've been given the heads up, why would you go to the cafeteria in clear violation? So, okay, so as we move on, point number 3, the double standards on hair. Bonnets and durags, functional hair protections. We just said that. Shout out to Lord of Slaughter again. Now, they say it's not lazy fashion choices. I don't know if I agree with that. I still kind of think bonnets might be a little bit on the lazy side, but I'm not a woman, so I'm not allowed to judge that. Durags, I might not be able to say durag. All the brothers I know that wear durags, they say you wear the durag so that your waves can stay, you know, wavy like a Hawaiian surf or whatever it is. So, but it do still, okay, so it may not be lazy for either side. Now, demonizing basic black hair maintenance roots itself in, in Eurocentric standards. Okay. This is the strongest point on the whole list. And I'll say it quite frankly and plainly. Yeah, they're right. I give you all the points for that. Now, however, a bonnet in transit from your dorm to a lecture hall is not the same thing as showing up looking like you never got out of bed. And the memo doesn't really draw a clear line on that. That might be a real gap in the policy. You know, fair critique. Now, point 4, however, customers versus employees. An employer pays you to follow that dress code. Students pay the university. This is true. So that's a flip, isn't it? Micromanaging paying adults hurts morale and enrollment. I don't know about that, family. I don't think that holds up. Here's why. Plenty of businesses enforce dress codes on paying customers. Just because I pay tuition don't mean I'm the boss. You can't get into a restaurant just because you got money. They got rules at the door. You break them, you can't go in. You can't walk into a country club, especially an upscale restaurant. Some gyms say, hold on, player, what you wearing? So paying for a service has never meant rules don't apply to you. So it's a good effort, it's a good attempt, but that analogy just doesn't survive contact with how commerce actually works in the real world, in the adult world, in the professional world, which is what you're in college to practice. Now, there's been a whole lot of talk about respectability. Point number 5. Respectability. Respectability politics. Respectability is not going to stop bias. This is true. We know this all too well. A suit will not shield you, whether it's from Goodwill or Hugo Boss or Gucci. A suit does not shield you from real world racial prejudice. We know this. We understand this. Nobody ever said it would. Nobody at Tuskegee claimed that a suit was going to stop racism. That's not the stated goal. That's not the implied goal anywhere in the policy. This is arguing against the claim that nobody made. You know, FBA do that a lot. But let me not digress. But that's all I'll say on it. Like, that's apples to oranges, maybe, perhaps. But again, so let's just move on. Point number 6. Now, they say it's an unfair financial strain, and that's what I alluded to earlier. Expecting low-income students to buy wardrobes just to eat lunch or sit through a lecture. Yeah, technically, that would be wrong. But here's the receipts that closes this. Tuskegee, like I said, Tuskegee has the Golden Tiger Community Closet. Alumni donate professional attire. Student volunteers open 3 days a week. They've been running that since at least 2023. So there goes your financial strain argument right on out the door. I'm sorry. It just doesn't survive the program. So here's where I land. 2 of these 6 points have some legitimacy. And I don't deny that. I'm not trying to discredit it or anything. Point number 1 is fair. Point number 3 is fair. Point number 2, point number 5, point number 6. I'm sorry, they don't hold up the way they were framed at the very least. And number 6 in particular gets directly refuted by something the university is already doing. So, okay, all that pulled together, where do I actually land? It's not like I'm in charge. And like I said, I try to stand with the students. But I can feel you on the cafeteria. I give you at least a little wiggle room. I may give you a whole lot of room in the cafeteria. You know. But the classroom? Nah. I would never. I'm sorry. I would just have to be like, y'all gonna just have to grow up. Bonnets, pajamas, bedroom slippers. That's a real hard no for me. And I don't think it's about age. Because I've been against that kind of wear for a long time. Not because I'm old. But I will say this, if you want to organize around something with a real case behind it, check out the phone policy. And forget about the sleepwear. Now, if clearly, this is not like something that everybody is going to agree with. If you disagree, let me know. Let me know in the comments. Let me know on the video page, in the replay, or what have you. But that's all I'm going to do about Tuskegee. That's the Tuskegee undercard, if we want to use that word. Bonnets, durags, business suits. Yeah, we got that settled. And ain't nobody really come here for the undercard anyhow. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and click the button. If you on TikTok or Instagram, come on over to youtube.com/the proper perspective. Because that's where everything really goes down when I'm on the screen and whatnot. So now we're going to get to the real No Mercy main event. Now, a brother asked me the other day, something along the lines of, what do you think about disaggregation? That's what we really going to be getting into. We're going to get it started with this. Well, what is disaggregation? And interestingly enough, even though I'm now going to start focusing on that, disaggregation is there's a through line here. Let's see if you can pick it up. So when we look at delineation, when we look at disaggregation, nice build vocabulary words. We're talking about ADOS and we're talking about FBA and the lines in the sand that they draw. And so, like I said, family, before I get started, come on over to youtube.com/the proper perspective, hit the like button, share this with somebody you think might be interested, drop some comments. So, disaggregation. What is disaggregation? It's an ADOS strategy. It's not FBA rhetoric. They sort of, they like yin and yang, but some differences. So let's talk about Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell, or at least their strategies. I'm not going to talk about the persons, not that much. So first, let's make a distinction. They're clearly, obviously, two different words, two different movements, technically. And they're not necessarily interchangeable. Not at their core, not by their defining ethos or momentum, not by dictionary denotative meanings, and not by the leaders of the various camps. Though you will, more than likely, if like me, you probably will encounter some FBA people that throw out disaggregation. You will encounter some ADOS people that throw out delineation. They do mix on the ground floor, on the grassroots. They do mix, but that's what happens when you have a discombobulated rank and file messenger. So, what is delineation? Delineation is the FBA term. It is essentially something about social gathering and groupings. It is an ideological boundary drawing move, and we talked about this. The claim about delineation is a claim about in identity itself. Who counts as us? Who is a member of the ethnicity? Not the lineage. That's an improper. And on the surface, it always sounds like something appropriate and innocent. But here's where things get tricky. Because knowing what your ethnicity is, knowing who is a part of your ethnicity and who is not part of your ethnicity, in general, seems inherently natural, seems innocuous, might even be a beautiful thing at times. There's nothing technically, officially, inherently bad about knowing what your ethnicity is, who's in your ethnicity. Not technically. Hell, our African ancestors, the slave ones and the ones that didn't get caught into the slave trade, the ones in the distant past and the not so distant past, they all derived ways and methods and means of signifying ethnicities, facial markings, certain hairstyles, certain jewelry. Those were all things that would denote, that would demark, I hate to say the word, would delineate, distinguish between different ethnicities. So that's not the problem. The problem becomes when when knowing your ethnicity is simultaneously attached to drawing the line between yours and another one, and simultaneously pointing at the other group as an inherent problem. That's delineation. That's more than I know you and me are one and the same and we the same group and ethnicity. No, that's I got a problem with those that ain't me, that ain't like me. That's when ethnicity becomes something a little bit more malevolent, a little bit more malicious. That's when delineation becomes a problem. And delineation begins to treat the boundary, and I said this Tuesday, it treats the boundary, the demarcation, the differentiation as inherently virtuous. Because I am this, I'm better than. And oftentimes, the delineation is fixed upon a foundation of falsehood, historical claims that don't match up with reality. And that's boundary sanctification in the taxonomy that I talked about Tuesday. So that's one of those big vocabulary words that this black nerd likes to deal with from time to time. Word of the hour, word of the algorithm, momentum. And many people, especially online, who have encountered these folks are right to call this out as xenophobic. It's a xenophobic shell game, a masquerade, a mischief-making, manipulation, scam. Yeah, and I say that, and I mean that. Shout out to Unbiased Ron for showing up. My mic is bad. I was afraid of that. I had done a lot of things to get this microphone fixed. I have checked my meters and my levels, and I have reattached my cables. I'm going to have to purchase either a new mic or a new cable. And there ain't too much else I can do about that. I might be able to turn the mic down. Thank you, Unbiased Ron, for letting me know. Choppy, I'm probably going to remain choppy because I have no other way to address the problem other than buying me some new equipment. I have run through all of my specs and checks. So if I'm still choppy now, the real question is whether or not I should even continue. But I do appreciate the heads up, Unbiased Ron. A little surprised, but I appreciate it. So family, if you're still choppy, I might call it a day. Let me see if I can find. Yeah, I don't have that more, so that's that. So what I was saying, I will keep going, and maybe I'll just do the whole thing again next week when new equipment arrives. So let me pull up this. Let me stop this and let me share another screen. So I found this on TikTok, and I thought this was interesting, especially under the notion of mischief making. Under the notion of mischief making. So let me see. Again, peace to Mr. K for giving me a shout out. Peace to Shabaka, Shades of the 60s. And peace to Unbiased Ron for saying 100. Let me see. Where? So this brother on TikTok, I saw this, and I thought this was very interesting when it comes to mischief making. So let me see if I can get this to play. This should play without any clips.
From the FBA community, get into it with somebody from Charleston, South Carolina, and they assumed that this person from Charleston was a foreigner. And then once it was explained that that person was Geechee and that their accent was of a Geechee dialect, and that person was from Charleston, South Carolina. Then that person said that people from Charleston, South Carolina are tethers. You see what, you see the problem now? like, you don't even know yourself. I just watched somebody from the FBA community get into it with somebody from Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay, so you hear what the brother said. You hear what the brother said. Let me pull that down, get it back up here. So Unbiased Ron says, I worked on Charleston, South Carolina. I know Geechee. Oh, that's cool. So you heard what the brother said. He witnessed. Now you might say, well, how you know he could be lying? Look, okay. You heard what the brother said. I take most FBA people at their word when they tell me I was disrespected. I'm gonna take this brother word when he said, this is what I saw. So he say he saw an FBA person and they was kind of sort of, grooving with, chilling, vibing with somebody that was Gullah Geechee. Because he thought that the Charleston, South Carolina accent was African, and he called him a tether. All I'm gonna say is mischief making. That's all I'm gonna say. Mischief making. Now, I'm gonna assume that my mic is probably still clipping. Y'all can see. I'm trying to sit back to see maybe. Like I turned the volume down. Let me see if I can turn the sound settings. Go back and check them sound settings. The microphone. Yeah, I got the microphone really kind of low. I don't know if that's gonna make a difference, but we will work with it. So again, mischief making. We're just gonna be talking about some mischief making for a hot second. Now again, Unbiased Ron says that the Gullah Geechee accent sounds more island than African. I don't know. I mean, I can see a little bit of both. I've spoken with some Gullah Geechee. I can't say that I worked with them, but I've been to South Carolina a few times, and I have had some conversations with Gullah Geechee. And I will say, I was thrown off. I was like, hold up, bro. Wait a minute. I don't know what you just said to me. I'm like, please, come again. And there were parts of it that did remind me of Jamaican, but there were parts of it, and I was like, that don't sound like Jamaican to me. So I think perhaps there's a mix. But again, these are anecdotal conversations. But since I'm to just give you a window into the mischief making, let me remove this, stop the screen, and I'm gonna share another video. So we got this other TikTok video. Once I find it, there. Now, y'all tell me if y'all think this one is true or not. I hope it ain't true, but it seems like it's true. Mischief making. So listen to this brother. Listen to what he got to say.
Broke, no culture having FBAs. I'm FBA myself. Vandalize Africa Town sign in Philly. If y'all had the capability to plant explosives in Africa Town, just like they did Tulsa, Oklahoma, you would. You would. If you had the power to flood Africa Town like they did our neighborhoods, you would. You would. Y'all have no culture. Y'all been in Philly for over 100 years and haven't established anything for Black Americans. But you're mad at the Africans and vandalize their shit. If you can go flood or put a highway through Africa Town, you would. You Black Americans haven't built anything in Philly but mad at the Africans because they came there and built something. Y'all have been there for too long to not have anything.
Now I'm gonna pause that for a hot second. Y'all heard the brother. He say he FBA. So that brother says he's FBA. And it ain't my job to determine that. It's a self-identifying group. Remember, it's not an organization. So Mr. K asked the question, is saying that FBAs are taking it to the streets? Exactly, my brother. Now again, I don't know if it's true. It's a video, like anything else out here on the internet. That brother is saying that FBA vandalized an Africa Town sign that was set up, put up by a group of Africans in Philly. Let's see. Now, let me see. Unbiased Ron says, let me see, hide this comment. You got a lot of FBA that are divisive and xenophobic. I've been calling them out. If you say so, Unbiased Ron. If you have been calling them out, I appreciate the work that you do. Baby London, you are a lie and a half at Ron. Ron does not know Geechee. And word, you ain't even from Carolina or Georgia. Okay, well, I don't know. Mr. K said, wow, all this going on while Tariq is in Japan right now. Now, why you want to blow up the traveling man's plans? Tariq seems to stay in America. So, again, you got these. Okay, that's cool, Unbiased Ron. You say they unsub from you. Okay, then perhaps you are doing some good work. Because the xenophobia is the number one reason I can't stand FBA and APES. But there are others. So again, I just wanted to share these videos to show you, there was some talk maybe a month or two ago about the things that's been going on in South Africa. And there was a talk a few months ago about people being actually literally afraid that FBA was going to take to the streets. And I'm like, well, they might. They might very well. And we can look at, we might be able to dig further into who they are and who they are supported by and who they are financed by the more they get into these streets and do these types of things. But we shall see. So again, FBA is now, maybe perhaps, if they take him to the streets like this other brother said, so now they vandalize it. And so again, like Unbiased Ron said, he's calling out xenophobia. This brother seems to be, he says he is an FBA, and he's calling out vandalism. Good job, brothers. Because these types of things have always needed to be called out, checked, stomped out, stopped, prevented even. But let's get away from, I always try to say, that's my soapbox. That's my social media soapbox. And for now, I don't have to I don't want to hark on the ugliest versions of the cults. Let's go back to the real meat of our conversation today. We were talking about boundaries, boundary sanctification. Now, again, when I built my taxonomy and discussed that Tuesday, I was supremely focused, hypervigilant, some might say. I was focused on the FBA environment. But not that I have to fix or correct, or not, but I want to expand it. Because even the FBA environment comes from something bigger. It comes from a mother movement, another movement, a mother movement, something bigger than FBA. Something bigger than ADOS. Now, I had a couple of brothers tell me, yeah, sure did. We got, we putting in that work for Dr. Claude Anderson. No, you're not. Now, when I say FBA comes from a bigger movement, and then when I say ADOS comes from a bigger movement, I ain't talking about Dr. Claude Anderson. Shout out to that elder. He is not the father of this. He is not even the grandfather of this. Now, I know a lot of people, especially in these FBA movements, they gonna try to tell you otherwise. They have tried to convince me otherwise. And I know they'll say, Tariq Nasheed said that he was inspired by Dr. Claude Anderson. Yes, he was. I was inspired by Dr. Claude Anderson too, and I don't hate no black immigrants. I don't hate the Caribbean descended people. I don't hate the continental African descended people. I don't push and promote xenophobia. So don't put that legacy on Dr. Claude Anderson. He didn't villainize the rest of the black community. Quite frankly, if you know, like I know, if you did any studying, you would know that Dr. Claude Anderson actually tried to build Africa Town. He didn't try to build Native Black America Town. He tried to build Africa Town. So again, don't put that negative, nasty, xenophobic legacy on Dr. Claude Anderson. Shabaka says, bow ties and pins. Now, Baby London says to Unbiased Ron, if you work in Louisiana, you will say you speak Creole. And, some other choice words. Now, Unbiased Ron says, Professor James Smalls, I'm not sure what you mean by that. It was probably in reference to something I said, but I missed the time piece on it. So you can clarify or we'll just keep going. So let me say this. I'm gonna share this too. Let me share this screen. We in a sharing mood today, family. So stop that one. Let me see. Share this screen, and I'm gonna get back with Baby London, who's got something to say about Tariq. And where is the other? I thought I had it pulled up, family. There we go. Here we go. So we're gonna pull this up. Y'all see, this is from Ashley the Baroness, who is an extremely insightful account holder, personality, content creator. So let's hear what she has to say.
As a Greek town, a Mexican town, a Cork town for the Irish. When one man proposed to Africa,
Hold
on. A Cork town for the Irish.
Okay, here we go.
Detroit has a Greek town, a Mexican town, a Cork town for the Irish. When one man proposed to Africa town, in a city that's over 80% black, they called him the racist. And here's the wild part. He had already predicted that exact reaction 10 years earlier in a book. His name is Dr. Claude Anderson. He's almost 90 years old, and clips of him go viral like every few months or so, breaking down group economics. And the comments under are always the same. Who is this? Why didn't anybody teach us this? So let me tell you who he actually is, because the resume is the part that nobody knows. People assume he's a lecture guy, a theory man with a whiteboard, But no, this man ran education for the entire state of Florida during desegregation. Then he delivered Florida for Jimmy Carter, and Carter appointed him to run a federal commission at the rank of Assistant Secretary of Commerce.
I'm going to pause for a hot second. Let me pause for a hot second. Y'all heard that, right? Dr. Claude Anderson. Now, Tariq tell us, vote Republican. And Tariq tried to tell you he was inspired by Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Claude Anderson was working for who, according to Ashley? Jimmy Carter. That ain't no Republican. He got Democrats to support what he was trying to do with powernomics, according to Ashley. I just want to point out that I know she said Democrat, Democrat, Democrat several times. So let's keep listening.
Funding economic development across the whole of the Southeast. He ran 2 development corporations in Miami and financed over 30 businesses. And when he helped run financing for the 1988 Democratic Convention, he steered 37% of those contracts to Black businesses, a record that's never been matched. Not before and not since. He owned one of the first Black-owned radio stations in Florida, too. So this is a man who's operated at the highest levels of state government, federal government, and business, which is exactly why what he says next hits different. In 1994, he wrote a book called Black Labor, White Wealth, and the core of it is one idea that rearranges your whole brain. Racism, he argues, was never really about hate. Hate is the customer service window. The actual business is competition. Groups competing for wealth, power, and resources. And under slavery and Jim Crow, America engineered Black people into a permanent bottom, a labor class and then a consumer class, never an owner class. Right. His most famous receipt? At the end of the Civil War, Black people owned about half of 1% of this country's wealth. A century and a half later, by his math, we've barely moved.
So I'm going to pause it there again. Come back to this big screen. So again, you hear Ashley breaking down Dr. Claude Anderson. Nothing in what she says. And now, so unless you want to say Ashley don't know what she's talking about, nothing in what Ashley is breaking down sounds like Tariq Nasheed. None of that sounds like FBA. None of that sounds like ADOS. That sounds like Dr. Claude Anderson was working with Democrats. FBA and ADOS tell you stay away from Democrats, tell you don't vote for a Democrat, tell you Democrats ain't gonna do nothing for you. Democrats ain't did nothing for you in 60 years. Dr. Claude Anderson didn't think so. Dr. Claude Anderson did other things with the Democrats for the native Black American community, for the African American community. So this is why I say, hold on, what y'all talking about, FBA? Now, Baby London says, according to Dr. Claude Anderson himself, he wrote the first paper on affirmative action in the White House, working for Jimmy Carter. So again, you got FBAs, they jumped all on my TikTok timeline, telling me that I don't understand and the FBA is following the lead of Dr. Claude Anderson. How? Dr. Claude Anderson actually tried to build a whole metropolitan city, calling it Africatown. So we can even build a museum. What kind of inspiration is that? So I'm not gonna play all of the rest of the video. I think you have the gist of. I may come back to it in case anybody wants to, have a conversation about that. But so again, this is the FBA zeitgeist, the ADOS zeitgeist. Now let me formally introduce the new word of the day, disaggregation. Now, I got some respect. I got a modicum more amount of respect for ADOS in this respect. Just this little slippet. Because FBA, delineation, xenophobia, society, social mayhem. Disaggregation, data, statistics, statistical methodology. Working more so directly with the government in one way, shape, form, or another, good or bad. Now, so disaggregation is inherently attached to this idea. The claim that they make, the argument that they make, is that lumping all Black people, lumping all Black communities into one federal data category has problems. Masks, hides, confuses, obfuscates real differences in outcomes between their favorite word, American descendants of slavery, and Black immigrant communities who live and work right amongst us. Y'all see what I'm saying? So that's what disaggregation is. Disaggregation is saying we're going to go to the government. The same way Malcolm X said, the same way Martin Luther King said, we going to the man. Adolf says we going to the government. That's a step above. all of the madness, all of the nut house nonsense that FBA promotes. So I can respect them in that regard. Now, but let's shape this out. Disaggregation, the way the argument is made, they say that when you break that category apart, we put the Black Caribbeans here, the continental Africans there, the descendants of slavery here, and then sometimes they include the freedmen and sometimes they don't include the freedmen, and you break the categories apart and you reveal the differences. You see which black folk getting the money. Now, I'm not entirely mad at that. Yes, you will see a good deal of the differences. I feel it necessary to key up on the word differences, because that's that word, that's that thing that white supremacists love. They love compartmentalization, they love separation, they love isolation, they love delineation, because it's divide and conquer. They love to break all of their enemies into smaller groups and make sure their enemies don't connect, because that furthers the dividing game that they always play, and that for some reason most of us always fall for. Now, if I wanted to make a philosophical argument, I might go out on a limb and say divide and conquer is white supremacy's religion. But this ain't a philosophical conversation. Excuse the tongue-tiedness of this. So, okay, again, back off the soapbox. The distinction between these two vocabulary words, delineation and disaggregation, the distinction matters. One is a rhetorical scapegoat identity checkers move, oftentimes made with zero factual content to substantiate it, or at least twisted factual historical documentation. That's FBA, if you're not, just in case you're not following. And the other is an empirical, more professional, more disciplined, a checkable methodological claim. And see, once you enter that realm, it's when the brain got to work a little bit more. But that's something that can be evaluated effectively and formally. And that's what makes the ADOS platform a little bit more understandable, a little bit more defensible, because it tries to analyze based on facts. Now, y'all know, if you're not new here, then you already know. If you're new here, y'all know I love facts. So let me see there. Baby London. Okay, that's just some funny stuff. Okay. Doom Mega, yes, that's right. In his greatest lecture, he did speak about buying a spot in Detroit, talking about Dr. Clovis. His video, this is from Doom Mega again, his video even tells us we have to get in the judicial system, learn how to buy people in the state and the local level. I'm glad you said that, because I'm going somewhere with that. When you talk to FBA on that, not one candidate. Those are my long-standing gripes with FBA and even ADOS. But that's key, and I'm going to get to that. So shout out. Thank you, Doom Mega, for making that point. So yes, the distinction matters. But here's the thing. When we start talking about disaggregation, there are things that disaggregation can do. Maybe. There are things this disaggregation cannot do. Now we're going to break this down. I'll tell you what disaggregation can do. The best of all worlds. Hang the hat on best of all worlds. You know, like Fantasyland. Population level statistical tracking, that's real. Tracking various demographic populations. You can track them based on poverty rates. You can track them based on outcomes in the healthcare system. You can track them based on housing discrimination patterns. You can track them on education gaps and attainment. You can track employment and hiring data. That's all fair game. That's all appropriate disaggregation. And once you gather that data and you break it out into subgroups, instead of lumping everybody under one black category, that is a legitimate, well-established public health and social policy practice on its own merits. Agencies and the government and organizations have been doing that. They haven't been doing it to the granular detail that ADOS wants. Okay, understand. You see a problem, you want to fix it. That's why I said shout out to that element of ADOS. And even if you go to their platform and you listen to them, sometimes you can get a clearer message. Because what ADOS says is, here's what we want. We want mandatory ADOS specific hiring and employment tracking. We want to know for a fact, did you hire 5 African Americans and 5 Caribbeans? Or did you hire 1 African American and 9 Caribbeans? That's what they want. They want it for all businesses, especially businesses receiving tax credits. They want it for all incentives. They want it for anything that would constitute government support. And an accountability mechanism, and a mechanism, an ability to go in and audit the data. We ain't gonna just trust your word. I ain't mad at that. We can't trust Uncle Sam wholeheartedly. And so again, no real issue with this element so far. It's very similar to what's already in place with equal employment opportunity commissions, even though the Republicans keep trying to destroy the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. It's already in line with things like race and gender hiring data requirements. So it's a real governmental agency job that needs to get done. So again, for me, I don't necessarily have a problem with the idea that this would be good data, at least not on the surface. It does sound like a fair request. Now, it sounds like a fair request because disaggregation is the ADOS movement trying to establish a category. Now, there can be some problems, and here's where that FBA stuff starts to creep in. Who counts as an American descendant of slavery? Who is distinct from other Black populations, Caribbeans, continental Africans, and first generation, second generations? Now, what ADOS says is once that category gets officiated by the government, that's our direct path to reparations. Do y'all believe that? Does ADOS believe that? Not the rank and file. I wonder if the proponents, the authors, the leaders of the ADOS movement really believe that. I wonder if they really believe that once Uncle Sam says, I'm going to let you check a box, we going to then be able to say, where's the check? Now, okay, that's, I joke, I kid. I might so far as the venture, again, on the surface, I do see a benefit with disaggregation, at least on the surface. And I will even give you, because I'm a Pan-Africanist, B Access, shout out, proper perspective, salute, brother, and also to the familiar on the chat. Shout out to Beat Active for showing up, coming through. Um, Baby London says no, unbelievable. I'm assuming that's in response to my question. Do ADOS really believe that getting this checkbox on census form is going to get us reparations? But I'm not sure. He can clarify. So now, because I'm a Pan-Africanist, I like to try and draw analogies from all over the black globe when I can. And I see something in the disaggregation push that reminds me of some things that go on in the global south. It's all about protection, protecting the resources, protecting the locals. Here's what I mean. In the global south, where governments do actually have, well, not just all governments have rules about who can and who cannot gain access to either resources or opportunities. Now, in the global south, sometimes it's not so much focused on the resources that come from the government, because in the global south, many times, the government may not have such an abundance of resources, especially when you look at what colonization and what colonialism has done. Like Haiti was hamstringed into paying money to France. So a lot of money was out of their budget. They didn't have as big a pot as they should. So it's not always about the resources per se in a global south nation that gets delivered to the citizens. In some of those places, it's about, well, what employment lanes are open. And so the government says, well, we're going to protect that. That's the pot that we're going to protect. So again, it's still a resource pot. It's just not the same type of resource pot. I hope that makes sense. So in the global south, in order to protect the local citizenry, which is what the ADOS community says disaggregation is all about. It's about protecting the resources for the people who need them. So that's what they say the protection, the disaggregation is here in America. The government has to enact certain rules. Again, no problem. So again, this is a protection activity. I can understand the merit of protecting the resources because there is a need that they say they're trying to address. But again, global south, whether you look at Ghana, whether you look at Mexico, the global south, they got rules on who can open up a business because that's their protection method. Not necessarily the rules about who can gain government resources. Because again, throughout the global south, the government may not have all of that money to dole out. So they protect local industries so that outsiders, here's the key, so that outsiders who are still allowed to come, and let me pause for a moment, because I know the FBA and the ADOS will be like, I heard an outsider. See, that's what I'm talking about, family. No, listen. Understand what I'm saying? In the global south, outsiders, foreigners, is defined by everybody with some common sense and access to an actual dictionary. That means people who were not born in that country, whatever country you're talking about. That's an outsider. ADOS and FBA are trying to say that the outsider includes people born in this country. ADOS and FBA are saying you could be here 20 years. We don't care. You not us. ADOS says, oh, FBA says, oh, we found your great granddaddy. He came from Haiti. You not us. We got to protect against you. That's not what's going on in the global south when they do disaggregation and protectionism. What they're doing is making sure that who can set up a business are the people born in those countries, not the travelers who can just wash through and bounce and create their own private monopoly. So again, there's a huge difference in global south protectionism and what the ADOS community is pushing as disaggregation. Now, I still might be a fan of protectionism, but I'm beginning to walk a bit further away from disaggregation. But even if I don't walk away from it, I will still say I understand there are some merits to disaggregation. Baby London, I might I'll put the link in the chat, but bro, you got to ensure that you're gonna behave properly. Cause I'll mute and kick you out if you come hot and you come in with some BS and some profanity and all that other stuff. So, I got to see your behavior in the chat room. Matter of fact, you can put in the chat room what it is that you want to say. I got to see what that is too. But like I said, I'm still trying to ride with the ADOS and disaggregation. And even if I believe in it completely, let me tell you what disaggregation cannot do. It cannot verify. Did I say that loud enough? It cannot verify these lineages that y'all keep talking about. Now, here's what I mean. ADOS is pushing for the Census Bureau to give us a new label. ADOS is pushing for the American Community Survey to give us a new label. ADOS is pushing the Homeless Management Information System to disaggregate the data so that there can be self-identification checkbox. And I had a brother show me the pictures. He sent them to me. He was like, see, I told you FBA is doing the job. You just don't know. I said, okay, let me look at this. And I'm going to show it to you, family. I'm going to show it to you. Again, if you're on Instagram, if you're on TikTok, you might want to come to youtube.com/@theproperperspective so you can see what I'm sharing on the screen. So these self-identification checkboxes, this is the victory. Someone gets to mark ADOS or even Native Black American descent on the census form. Other people get to mark Haitian on the census form. Some people might say, oh, look at that. I get to finally mark Nigerian on the census form. But there is zero documentation on the census form. And I'm bringing this up specifically because I had FBA and I had ADOS telling me, once we get this is going to show and prove who we are and who they are. So let me just point out something. Something for you to chew on. Something for you to mull over. Because the other thing they said, and this has to be said too, they're able to show who we are, who they are. And then we're going to be able to stop them from hustling in on our reparations check. Because of census form. So they want the government to honor this new ethnicity label. Because that's going to fix the problem. Now, none of these changes, if they do actually go through, and see, the brother told me they already went through. If they go through, the way they're being suggested by ADOS and sometimes FBA, they are not attached to a verification button. What you mean? It's a form. You fill it out. How could there be a button? Here's what I mean. And specifically, I had an FBA brother tell me, he made the argument, we got to protect our resources because these immigrants are trying to hustle us. They're trying to muscle in on the reparations pie and they're trying to get our housing money. This government change, this invention of a new name, that's what's going to put it all in check. I don't know, you don't understand this. Now, again, let me say, I don't give much credence to this notion that there's thousands, that there's millions, that there's hundreds of thousands of black immigrant people who want to muscle in and hustle in on the reparations check. I'm just not that paranoid. And I don't care if you pull up a Tariq Nasheed video and say, see, you hear this guy on the phone and we can't even see his face. And he say he gonna lie. I'm gonna grant you the paranoia anyhow. That's how you feel, and if that's how you feel, you have a right to your feelings. You don't have a right to your facts, but you have a right to your feelings. And you have a duty to stand up for what you believe in. So I salute you if that's what you think you're doing. But here's the thing I'm trying to draw down on, family. If you got thousands, if you got hundreds of thousands, if you got millions of black immigrants who are trying to hustle in on the check, and you are allowed to check a box, you trying to tell me they're not going to check the same box that you do? Whatever you say the right one is. I had another FBA sister say, you a Pan-Africanist. We're not even going to tell you what box to check. Like it ain't out there anyhow. When it comes to the census form, they just gonna check these hustlers that you say exist. They just gonna check whatever you check. It's not like it's gonna be a secret when they see the form. Y'all everywhere, so y'all say. So if you push, hey family, we need to write in foundational Black American. So is the hustlers. They're gonna check the same box. If that's their mindset, if those thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of black immigrants of continental African, first, second, and third generation Caribbean, if they trying to hustle in, they just gonna click the same box you do. Whether it's checking the box or writing it in, the census form is just a piece of paper. It shows up at your door. It shows up in your mailbox. You fill it out. You send it off. Now, so I'm like, I don't understand it, family. I'm missing it. Now, somebody might say, brother, you know the hammer swings both ways. If there's no verification button, then that same logic doesn't that, well, that doesn't just hurt the FBA argument. That hurts the ADOS's own ask. Yeah, I know. I said I'm not in the ADOS corner. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to be supportive if there's something that makes sense. I don't got a problem admitting that there are bullet holes in the ADOS argument, just like there are bullet holes in the FBA arguments. But maybe that's my soapbox. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm tripping. I just don't understand census forms. So let me just say this. There is a very real load-bearing gap in this entire disaggregation equals reparations pipeline argument. This idea that we're going to get our direct cash payments once we require a no verified census form mechanism, all in line with our new lineage nomenclature. I just don't buy it. Now, I will say, shout out to everybody in California that worked on reparations. The California Reparations Task Force they actually recognized some elements of disaggregation or delineation, lineage-based eligibility. In, I forget what it was called, SB 1403, and it's two others. I can't remember them now. But rather than relying on a census category, and I dare say they did all of this without the help of Tariq Nasheed, and without the help of Yvette Carnell, and without the help of Antonio Moore. In the California Task Force, they wrote language that's to some extent matches, mirrors, aligns with one of the African American scholars who has written extensively on reparations, Dr. William Darity. Not Tariq, not Yvette, not Antonio. And so I asked the question, well, who is that what ADOS was doing? Is that what FBA was doing? Are they the people that was doing all of this stuff? How could they possibly have done it if they ain't had no contact with all of these great, brilliant minds that so many of our people seem to be following? What are the names of these organizations? Are there any organizations that are at least in name dedicated to the idea of being labeled American descendant of slavery? Foundational Black American? Or are they all still running by the name African American? Do they uphold the disaggregation talk? Do they uphold the delineation talk? Now, if you got more evidence, better evidence than me, I'm open to it. I appreciate it. And what I mean by that is when I did a search, when I went looking, I couldn't find none of this work that Tariq said the family is doing, that the FBA is doing. I couldn't find no evidence of it. I tell you what I found, at least in California. They set up a task force. Eight African Americans. 0 identify as FBA. 0 identify as ADOS. 8 African Americans. Now, it might shock you to find out it was 9 members total on the task force. So the 8 African Americans was joined by a Japanese American. Now, if this don't blow your mind, didn't Tariq tell us that all the Asians are our enemies? Didn't the FBA say all the Asians are our enemies? Well, the 8 African Americans in California said, we gonna roll with this Japanese brother, this Japanese American brother. He gonna help us get what we need. I can't tell you why. I just can tell you that's who's on the committee. So they clearly not listening to Tariq or Yvette or Antonio. Now here's the other thing that I keep trying to point out, because ADOS, Tariq, FBA, Antonio, everybody in the anything but African squad keep telling us, don't mess with the Democrats. Vote Republican. Let's stick it to the Democrats. Well, this California task force that even they try to take credit for was put up, set up, was authorized by a Democrat, not a Republican. Governor Newsom. I don't even like the dude. But Governor Newsom is the one that set it up. A Democrat. How could he? But I thought the Democrats ain't did nothing for nobody in 60 years. So do you see the cognitive dissonance that I'm having with myself when I try to ride with FBA and ADOS? The facts just smack you in the face like a white glove from a pimp. Now, the actual legislation, the SB, whatever that was, no, they got something else called the AB 3121, something like that. I forget. I am sorry. I do apologize. But the legislation that puts this California reparations package together was authored by Shirley Weaver, not a Republican, a Democrat. No individual member publicly identifies as FBA or ADOS, not personally, not professionally. The task force itself voted. So the task force did indeed, they decided to vote to limit eligibility specifically to descendants of antebellum U.S. slavery, not the broader African American category. So now I would understand FBA and ADOS would be, see, that's our victory. We did it. Y'all didn't do nothing. Those are Democrats. You said support the Republicans. Those are African Americans. You said dead the name. They followed Dr. William Darity, not you. And they got to the same place with zero xenophobia, with zero hatred, with zero divide and conquer. So functionally, okay, the lineage-based standard has been adopted in California without one phone call, without one page being read out of the FBA playbook. And why is that important? Because you don't need a new label to get the job done. You don't need to call yourself Foundational Black American in order to establish the right, the demand for reparations. The label ain't getting you nothing but a headache. Now, I've said this time and time again. And this is why the FBA and the ADOS get on my nerves. Because when elected officials, when politicians, when representatives, they write legislation, and the track record is everywhere. When they write anti-discrimination legislation, when they write legislation for handicap, when they write legislation for anything where they want to put a bullseye target on a particular group that they feel like they need to protect and disaggregate, they define in the legislation. They don't have to look for the group of humans to gather and say, we want a new name. The handicapped Americans didn't join all together and say, we better y'all better start calling us physically challenged and put it on the census. Now, I mean it just as I said it. Now, again, I still give props to Cornell and Moore because they at least created an organization. Shout out to them for that. More than what your boy did. More than what Mr. Museum Man did. So the ADOS, they actually got the ADOS Advocacy Foundation. That's a real, formally organized, nonprofit, whatever, 501, whatever it's called. They got staff. They got legal counsel. They even have defamation lawsuits. They went up against Harvard. They've worked campaigns against, in conjunction with the Office of Management and Budget. I think I said that right. See, ADOS is not in these YouTube streets making a lot of noise and vandalizing signs. Now, I may not, there's some good, there might be some bad in that, because they might be moving so beneath the radar, nobody realizes the 52 fake out that they about to put on the black community. But at least on the surface, they got an organization. FBA ain't got nothing. Loud mouths, perhaps some vandalists, some vandalism, but they ain't built nothing. They try to take credit for everything that does get built. It was an FBA brother that told me about the ADOS forms. So, baby London, I'm gonna let you come up, but you still ain't said nothing. Um, you ain't put nothing in here that sounds like you yourself are succinct. So again, my honest verdict, disaggregation. There may be a where it can strengthen the policy argument for reparations if it's done correctly and if everybody fills out the forms in honesty by proving a population disparity or population level disparity. But it cannot by itself deliver individual cash payments because a group level disparity and building an individual cash payment or eligibility system are two separate things. Now, ADOS's own public messaging blurs the two together. That's that 52 fake out. Now, another thing I want to point out, and again, I'm not anywhere near as knee deep in studying the ADOS as I have been with studying the FBA. So perhaps my own blind ignorance. But now this is a criticism regardless of what camp you stand in. We in the black community, we always get hit with these movements. We have these movements that get us up in arms. And we follow suit and we join and we do, well, some of us do work. But so here's the question. Which groups have we joined? Which groups do work with that actually has a full-fledged objective agenda and agreed upon deadline, a date on when it's going to get done, or at least benchmarks of what we're going to look for to see if we are on the right track and getting it done? Now, I ask this because it's a genuinely important question, because we have seen movements. Now, whether you use them or not, whether you castigate or not, there have always been groups, leaders, movements that gather the masses and move forward on a train going to nowhere. And nobody realizes they're on a train going to nowhere. So 20 years later, they're on a train going to nowhere. Whether you're talking about building a museum, building a school, or even passing legislation. This is something that from my view, we as a community keep forgetting, we keep overlooking, we keep repeating, particularly engaging in things with no deadlines. So I ask, because the question becomes, if you really do believe in reparations, do you want it in your lifetime? Or do you want it in your child's lifetime? Or do you want it in your grandchild's lifetime? That's the question I'm asking. That's the question, to some extent, I struggle with it myself. Tangibles. That's the name of the word. That's the name of the game. Everybody got excited. Tangibles, 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 tangibles. Where are the tangibles? So you mean to tell me you're willing to do all of this work, all of this yelling and screaming, but you don't want a deadline on your so-called tangibles? I mean, even if I was a supporter of Mr. Museum Man, I recognize by now he ain't gonna build a museum. At least not in my lifetime, not properly. So tangibles, reparations, cash payments, census forms, I ain't got time for that. And I say this because I was honestly rooting and cheering for Mr. Museum Man. I love museums. I have traveled. I traveled sometimes just because of a museum. I went to Detroit. I've been to Chicago, South Carolina. I went to Mexico because I wanted to see the museums. So I would have went to California to see his museum. It's a banquet hall. Now, Okay, never mind. Forget that. Soapbox. Let me stop. Um, so here's the piece I want you to sit with. If you're FBA, if you're Adolf, if you're Friedman, it really doesn't matter. Is a deadline important to you? If it is, how you gonna fix it? Now, Beat Active says, let me see. Beat Active says, FBA's FBA is not only never built nothing, but also FBA has accomplished or has not accomplished anything in the civil rights movement or for the community. Because the fact is, FBA was born around 8 years ago. And I would honestly, I would try to give them slack. I'd be like, okay, well, they're only 8 years old, give them some time. But other organizations have done far more. Other movements have done far more in 8 years than what FBA has done. Other movements have gotten things done in 2 years. The Beat Active says the same thing pretty much applies to ADOS, who are the same as the FBA. Indeed. Again, what ADOS has, according to the brother that sent me the images, the ADOS victory is, it ain't even a census form. It's a government agency checkbox. That's the extent of the victory. A government agency checkbox, and it ain't even on the census form, which according to them is the one that we need the most. Now, I don't know if y'all have seen these. I'm going to throw them on the screen for a hot second. Let me stop sharing and share this. So this is what the brother sent me. And I know it's hard to see. And if you on Instagram and if you on TikTok, you can't see it. I do apologize, but that's just what it is. YouTube.com/@the perspective. So you see this form where they have agreed to put under ethnicity, you can actually put Native Black American descent now. Now, again, the fact that it's not the census form, and they said it needs to be on the census form, that's one thing. The fact that they didn't even agree to put American descendant of slavery on there. They didn't agree to put foundational Black American on there. Again, where is the victory? What madness, what nonsense is this? You could put Native Black American descent. Just completely bypass both movements. Now, on this other form, you can check Black or African American. And then you get to choose. You can choose African American or other or of African American. Enter, for example, Trinidadian, Tobagoan, Ghanaian, Congolese. You can put Black American. This is the extent of the ADOS victory towards reparations. And these are not even the census forms. They tell us that the census forms is where our biggest victory is. And the census forms have not, the Census Bureau has not said, we got you. They've said next year, maybe. The year after that, maybe. So again, the forms that this brother is showing me, now maybe he's wrong. So, again, everything I'm saying is predicated on the fact that the FBA brother sent me these as his verifiable proof that FBA and ADOS are getting something done towards reparations. And we have a homeless shelter form. That's the best you got. There's even videos by Yvette Carnell who bemoans the fact that they didn't get the win. There's even videos where she says, we was trying to get it, family, but they didn't give it to us, family. But I tell you who did get disaggregation. The Asians. The Asians got disaggregation. And you know how they got it? They didn't get it by sitting on the couch. They didn't get it by not voting for Democrats. They got it by organizing. I think they said over was it 100 groups that I read? They organized. I can't even remember the name, the Numa family, but they organized a chunk of Asian organizations. It was Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus. You know, the Asian version of the Congressional Black Caucus. They had a specific representative that was a chair in the Democratic Party, not the Republican Party. There was a Senate letter. So what I'm saying is these folks actively engaged the Democratic Party and got what they wanted. They also created a political action committee, a PAC. That ain't what FBA does. That ain't what ADOS does. The Asians got together and worked with the Democratic administration for an Asian American advocacy, while ADOS says, sit at home, family. We're going to get this by sheer willpower. While FBA says, sit at home, family. We're going to get this by sheer vocal lung power. And you tell me I'm supposed to be supporting. Now, it took the Asians 7 years. Again, it took them 7 years. ADOS, FBA, 8. Y'all 1 year older than them. Y'all got 1 year more than them, and they got less than them. Yeah, and it was 100 different advocacy organizations. The Asians pulled together the Filipinos. They pulled together the Pacific Islanders. They pulled together the Asian Americans proper. Everybody that fits the Asian profile. The light ones, the dark ones, so on and so forth. And they worked for 7 years to get the disaggregation onto the Census Bureau. That's a genuinely different organizing model than ADOS or FBA. They had their own elected caucus. You know, the one that FBA said they ain't did nothing for us, so we don't need to vote. The Asians voted, and they kept knocking on their congressmen's doors, and they kept knocking on their senators' doors. So what I'm saying is political engagement is what wins you whatever your agenda is, not sitting on the sofa. So let me see something. So Kevin E. Turner, what are the names of the groups or organizations that has done more in 8 years? I am not aware of such organizations by name. I'm not, okay, maybe I'm not sure what you mean. To be fair, a lot of African and Caribbean immigrants were at meetings about Black Americans reparations conferences, attempting to sabotage it by saying it, and most of them were sitting on the board. Kevin Turner, where you from? And I'm not asking that like as a guy. I'm asking because you're saying, are you saying that is what has happened you say a lot of them happened where? Now I say that because I just went through a whole thing about the California Task Force. And to be fair, the California Task Force was 8 African Americans and 1 Japanese person. Now I know that's just one. That's one set. That's one state. I haven't looked at all of the states, but I do also know that Evanston, Illinois, is a site of a reparations program, manned, worked, institutionalized by African Americans who did not go by FBA, who did not go by ADOS, who did not ask to read his Tariq Nasheed for his advice or his assistance, and they got the job done without any of the delineation or disaggregation language. And so that's the state of California doing something without any of the xenophobia and the accusations. That's the state of Illinois doing something without any of the xenophobia and the accusation. So that's two right there. So where you from where you saw all this other stuff? I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just asking for a specific area. And you haven't answered my question. Okay, I'm sorry. You had Kevin Turner says, I'm from Virginia. Well, big up Virginia. Shout out to you because I'm from Virginia too. Now, Kevin Turner says, I am Black American. You have every right to call yourself Black American. I'm African American. What are we doing? Now, Beat Active says, and I bet the Haitians didn't minimize or spit on everyone else's background or nationality or ethnicity or culture or language or English accent or African ancestors. Shout out to that. Now, Kevin Turner says, the difference is that Asians aren't trying to sabotage other Asians coming over from trying to get they believe they are owed. Well, first off, you haven't proven that Caribbeans were trying to sabotage. Second off, how do you know that the Asians have some infighting? Kevin Turner says, but didn't Africans and Caribbeans tell each other before they came over to not deal with us Black Americans? Actually, no. The U.S. government, your Republican representatives, told Caribbeans and Africans, stay away from African Americans. So who the decisive ones? Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam is the decisive one, divisive one. Now, you call yourself an African American. I'm not sure how you feel about Uncle Sam, but most of the FBA energy is I pledge allegiance to Uncle Sam. That's who you pledge your allegiance to, and that's who created the divide. Now, Kevin Turner says, who do you know that the Asians, how do you know that the Asians didn't? How do I know that the Asians didn't? How do you know that the Africans did? How do you know that the Asians did not? That's circular thinking. If you have fact, we can rock with that. If you have an incident, we can rock with that. But throwing out blind questions doesn't incident anywhere. So you telling me, this is Turner again. He says, so you telling me that Africans who admitted this themselves is lying. I'm telling you that Uncle Sam told Africans to stay away from us. And I'm telling you that most Africans didn't even listen to them. They just acted like they was listening. The same way, we don't listen to Uncle Sam. We just act like we listening so we can get through to the next line. Now, I'm not going to cover Ta-Nehisi Coates. I will say, as much as I try to align myself with my good brothers in the ADOS and the FBA community, if they stop smuggling in xenophobia like the good brother Kevin Turner is doing, then I could hear them a lot clearer. I would be more easily convinced that delineation has merit, that disaggregation might be needed, and that it would perhaps the goals that they say they have are meritorious. But the same way Ken Turner came in, and I don't believe the brother is like, I don't believe he's disingenuous, so to speak, but I certainly don't recognize the name, so I think he's new here. So, well, I'll tell you what's being xenophobic. Casting aspersions with no evidence. How you know the Africans weren't trying to separate? Casting aspersions with no evidence. I would say I've been in many spaces where continental Africans work with me, come up to me, we talk, we chill. That's that. I don't see the xenophobia. I've seen Africans. I've seen continental Africans supporting Black African American soul food businesses. I don't see xenophobia. I don't see it happening. So Beat Active says, I never heard of any nationality or ethnicity creating being based on attacking, minimizing everyone else's nationalities or ethnicities or cultural backgrounds like FBA and AOS or ABOs or pretendians. They all do it. Now, I've already answered the question. You're going to ask it twice. I've already answered the question. So again, this might be, well, I'm going to get to my closing, but just in case, we're going to try this. And if it don't work, no, let's see, remove that. Stop the shit. I'm going to see this. Let me see. Share screen. No. Invite guests. Now, somebody earlier, I don't know if they're going to still come in. Somebody said they want me to send the link. The link is in the chat. So before my closing, I'm going to put the link in the chat. If anybody wants to come in, come on over to youtube.com/@the-proper-perspective. And the @ is the ampersand, not AT. Come on over. You can hit a link. And we try to have a positive conversation. Now, Kevin Turner says, your erroneous take on me having an opinion makes me xenophobic is the problem. My erroneous take on you having an opinion makes me xenophobic. One, I don't think my take on you is erroneous. I understand what you're saying. You're saying that the way I view your opinion, you're saying that the way I judge your opinion is the problem. Okay, so let me start over. How? I will start over. Kevin Turner, what's the main statement that you want to make about, this conversation, I guess? Let me calm down. Let me not be so. Let me see, move this out the way. Okay. So again, now I'm asking you, you don't want me to have an erroneous take on your opinion. And so now you're saying you Pan-Africanists are stuck in the 90s. Okay. And you FBAs are stuck in the playbook of white supremacy. Ad hominem attacks get us nowhere, my brother. Now, I said I would start over and try to hear you out. And you ain't got it. So like I said, the link is in the chat, family. I'm going to get ready to do my closeout. So now remember, this is like a 2-punch session today. We started off with the Bonnets, the Durags. So here's the thread. I said that there's a connection, there's a thesis, so to speak, that runs through all of this stuff. So here's the through line. Here's the thread connecting everything. A bonnet can be looked at like a boundary. A business suit is a boundary, much the same. Now, I don't mean literally, I mean metaphorically. Foundational Black American is indeed a boundary. American descendant of slavery is a boundary. Every single issue, every single fight, every single struggle, every single movement that I talked about today, tonight, this evening, this afternoon, Tuskegee, Virginia Union, Hampton, North Carolina Central State University, FBA's ADOS, it's all a fight. It's all the same fight, wearing a different outfit. Somebody somewhere trying to make a decision on where the line goes. How do we draw the line? And somebody else has to live, or we all have to live on the right or the wrong side of it. Now, Tuskegee said, this fabric no longer belongs in the classroom. FBA said, this bloodline no longer belongs to the African American community. And care what your birth certificate says. And they don't care if you was born here or not. And Adolf said, this category, this group, this belongs on the most superior government form in all of government agencies, the census form. Now they just haven't figured out how to make it prove what they say it's gonna do. But boundary sanctification is what I talked about Tuesday. Boundaries is what we're talking about. 3 boundaries tonight, 3 different boundaries, different rooms, but all of very similar architecture. Now here's what ties it together. Tighter than any loose strings. Every single one of these lines gets drawn by somebody claiming that they're protecting something. They're protecting decorum. They're protecting purity. They're protecting resources. And every single one of them, when you actually start to dig, when you actually pull the thread, ends up punishing people closest to home a lot harder than the threat they claim to be guarding against. Tuskegee's ban doesn't touch a single non-black institution. It lands on black students, for good or for bad. FBA's delineation doesn't touch a single white supremacist that's trying to destroy us and keep us from getting reparations. It lands on Malcolm X's mother. Disaggregation, if it ever gets enforced, without any type of verification mechanism, won't stop a single bad actor, won't stop a single continental African or Caribbean mean-ass immigrant from clicking the same box that the FBA does, or writing in the same label that the ADOS does. It just creates a new form for more people to lie on or ignore altogether. So that's the pattern we're looking at. Not 3 separate controversies, in all honesty. One instinct dressed 3 different ways. And every time the people drawing the line, they insist it's about protection. And every time the people drawing the line ends up hurting members of the community. And members of the community end up eating the cost of it. So that's why I said no mercy today. Now, some people have said, oh, he about to go in hot. He must be a shock jock. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I don't do that. That's not what no mercy is about. I say no mercy, not for the dress code excuses, not for the delineation mythologies, and not for the disaggregation foibles. I have no mercy for any of that. Now, hold on. Let me see. Because Kevin Turner might be saying something positive. Kevin Turner says, I am not FBA. I am Black American. Okay. I mean, honestly, I don't necessarily know what the difference is. If you want to clarify that, then that's fine. I have heard some rumblings, and I've heard a few people tell me that there's a new movement, no deadlines, no agendas, no goals, but there's a new movement of people who are differentiating themselves from FBA, and they're saying, I am Black American. Well, okay, that's cool. Maybe I did make the assumption that you were FBA, but like I said, I don't know the difference. So if you want to teach me, I'm here to learn. Now, Doom Mega says, Kevin Turner, we see you comment and respond. We see your comments and responses. Tell us how we should proceed to interpret your comments. And Kevin Turner says, Doom Mega, I didn't respect anyone. What are you talking about? I only give my opinion. Now, let me just say this. I'm not sure, at least at that point in that statement. I don't know if that's a genuine statement or not, but let me say this. The idea that gets floated around in today's society, I don't know if it's an African American black community only thing. I think it exists in all communities. But this idea that I'm not being offensive, I'm just expressing an opinion, is hogwash. Just because you're expressing an opinion does not mean your opinion cannot be offensive. So I just want to say that. Because Kevin Turner says, I didn't disrespect anyone. I'm only giving an opinion. Your opinion can be disrespectful. And Doom Maker calls him out and says, did you? Now Kevin Turner says, facts does not need interpretation. It only needs to be understood, and that's on you. You said Pan-Africanism stuck. Identify how they are stuck, because you seem to be in proximity to the people that stuck. And that's a good question. I didn't even catch that. Appreciate that, Doom Maker. He did say he said you Pan-Africanists are stuck in the 90s. Now, perhaps he meant just me, but it was worded in such a way as to lay upon all Pan-Africanists. Now, I'm sure he don't even know any Pan-Africanists in real life, but I don't want to make an assumption. He already called me out on that before. So let me see. Kevin Turner says, it is stuck or stagnant, more likely. Tell me, why isn't Pan-Africanism practiced everywhere but Africa? So again, now, this is one of those taxonomy questions, family. He says, why is Pan-Africanism practiced everywhere but Africa? So Kevin Turner, now you said you're from Virginia, and you're clearly online. I don't understand why you would make such a question that, no offense, but it is a question that is steeped in ignorance. When you say, why is it Pan-Africanism practiced everywhere but Africa? Like, again, I want to say that you're asking an honest question. Pan-Africanism is practiced in Africa, but that's why it doesn't make any sense. Because to make the assumption that it's not practiced in Africa is, what do they say about people who make assumptions? When you assume, you point one finger out and three back at you. But I'll move on. Omega says, Kevin, can you explain how it's stuck in descriptive detail? Because it does seem to be you have benefited from Pan-Africanism, unconsciously or not. Please educate us if you don't mind. And Doom Mega says, do you have any books on Pan-Africanism? By mere chance, have you ever gotten any books, like by Amos Wilson, so you can understand what your opinion is trying to suggest? And I don't know what Kevin Turner means. He says, who is it realistically? Who it is? It's a realistic question. Okay, no, it's a legitimate question. Omega says, Kevin, above your responses are undermining the host. So again, okay, well, let me just say this before I get up out of here. So Kevin makes the question or the assumption, however you want to say it. His baseline question right now on the floor is, how is it that Pan-Africanism is being practiced everywhere except Africa? Now, as Doom Mega is trying to point out to him, like, you seem to not have any significant knowledge about what Pan-Africanism is in order to make the statement, but I'm going to digress from there. If I give you some examples of Pan-Africanism being practiced in Africa, are you going to accept them, or are you going to say that doesn't count? Now, that's a rhetorical question. So I will say, I mean, the most famous example right now in 2026, in 2025, in 2024, the most famous example of Pan-Africanism is the Sahelian states. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have come together, three separate nations have come together to form a coalition by where they are working lock, stock, and barrel in their governments, in their militaries, in their economic infrastructures to build and improve their countries. That is Pan-Africanism. That's just one example, but that is indeed Pan-Africanism on the continent. So again, Kevin, if you are a sincere person and not a troll, if you are a sincere and honest person and not a bot, then do you accept that as an example of Pan-Africanism being practiced on the continent? Or are you still going to just get offline here and go into somebody else's chat room and say, tell me how come Pan-Africanism ain't practiced on the continent? That's my question to you, my good brother. I'm kind of waiting, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. But out there in TikTok land and Instagram land, I know it's a little bit difficult. I appreciate you if you're joining, stepping in just to listen. I can hit the wave button. I can shout out to you. Again, I always say, if you are indeed watching me on TikTok, if you are indeed watching me on Instagram, I would love it. I would be so honored if you came over to youtube.com/at the proper perspective. And the at is the ampersand, not AT. And so again, I'm trying to see if Kevin's gonna respond or did Kevin run away? Okay, so Kevin says, I asked what organization accomplished in 8 years that Black Americans or so-called FBAs that are not Black Americans themselves. I asked what organization. Okay, so for some reason, I'm really getting twisted by Kevin's other question, even though he hasn't answered my question. Just to be clear, he has totally ignored the first question Kevin put on the floor is how come Africa ain't practicing Pan-Africanism? Now I gave him a very clear example and he's ignoring it altogether. Now I think we might let's see who else is in the chat room. Who else is here? So Keith Rice says you have more in common with any white person in America than the whole country of Africa. You know, I think this is funny because Keith Rice is trying to pull a flim flam gotcha moment, a talking point. And it's so ignorant. He called Africa a country. That alone, I mean, it ain't too much to say about that. That's just a troll. Let's see. Mr. K is in the house. Mr. K says, Kevin Turner, have you ever practiced Pan-Africanism in your lifetime? If yes, how did you practice it? Now, I'm pretty sure Kevin ain't gonna answer it. And if Keith has the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to make good on his comment, in spite of the ignorant part, you know, you could try to tell us why you think African Americans have more in common with white people than anybody on the continent. I would love to hear that. It's certainly like, I'm gonna slow down. So, Kevin Turner says, if Pan-Africanism is benefit to Africans in Africa, why are so many running from it? That's an interesting question. It's still an ill-informed question because, okay, let me turn it around. If America is so great, why are so many Americans running from America? If Christianity is so great, why are so many people leaving the religion? That's the so what I'm saying is it sounds like a gotcha. It's not, it really isn't. And especially when you say, and I've covered this before. People like to make a big whip-de-doo over how many Africans are leaving different African nations. And when you do math, the overwhelming majority of Africans are still sitting in their African nations. So many that they hardly represent 1 and 2 and 3% in whatever countries they go to. Now, I don't know who this is trying to call me. Everybody's supposed to know I'm live right now. So Doom Mega says, Kevin, what are the data that point to Asians have not sabotaged people in their group, sir? Where have you visibly seen data that proves they wouldn't trade their own folk? Now, I know for a fact there was some fighting. There was some fighting when the Japanese internment camps set out, or I'm saying that wrong, when the Japanese people who were interned in those camps in America sought out their reparations, there was some fighting in the Asian community. So Kevin, Mr. K, shout out to Kevin Turner, look up the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System Pride in Africa. It's about Pan-African economics and finance in Africa. So again, so now we have on the floor 2 hardcore examples of Pan-Africanism being practiced in Africa. Kevin said it's not being practiced in Africa. Again, I give you grace and space, my good brother, if you simply don't know these things occur. But now you have 2 people giving you documented facts. Are you going to say, oh, my bad, I didn't know that? Or are you going to say, well, let's shift let's change topics? So Doom Mega says, Kevin, you are aware that Italians betray their own if need be, right? You do know Asians do that too, right? You'll see Europeans at war right now with each other. Keith Rice says you're not African, or you're not African, you're American. Based on what? I like this conversation. I like this topic. And I broke this down the other day. When we throw out these labels, it behooves us to identify what part of the label you are fixated on. Let me say it that way. I like that word, fixated. Because I could say the statement, and I could mean it. I could say, I'm not African, I'm an American. And then I could turn around and say, technically, I'm not really an American. I'm more African than I am American. Now, if you slow-headed, if you baby brain, if you don't understand nuance, if all of this is going to confuse you. So let me slow it down. If we're talking about nationality and citizenship, I'm an American. How can I deny that? I can't deny that any more than I wear glasses. Now, if we're going to have a conversation about heritage, if we're going to have a conversation about culture, if we're going to have a conversation about DNA, I'm African. Point blank. Plain and simple. So you need to understand nuance. You need to understand critical thinking instead of just mirroring and mimicking talking points that people pass around like notes in a classroom. So Mr. K says, let me correct you about the so many Africans. Mr. K says, it's only a minority of Africans that migrate to the West. Like I said, the overwhelming majority of Africans still live in the African countries that they were born in. And Larry Jackson has entered the room, and Larry Jackson says, I'm still waiting on my 40 acres and a mule. Yeah, okay. Me too. We all are. See, another strong man argument. Italians really. Kevin Turner, class of '09 ODU grad. Okay. Shout out to Beat. Beat Active says 100%. Doom Mega says no, Kevin. I'm trying to remind you, your comments are just a distorted perception based on what you're surrounded by. Yeah, again, I really haven't heard a cogent and clear question from Ken Turner. And I hate to say that because, again, well, no, I can't say that. Let me correct that. I did hear a clear and cogent question. Kevin Turner asked whether or not Pan Africanism is practiced on the continent. Now, Kevin Turner has been running like the marathon man from those answers. So, class of '09 ODU graduate from Virginia, Kevin Turner, what do you have to say about the economic system, the payment system that Mr. K informed you of, and the Sahelian State Alliance that I informed you of, as two examples of Pan-Africanism being practiced on the continent? That's what I want to know. And family, the link is still in the chat. Keith Wright says, here's a good question. How long does a people have to be in a country, be part of that country? Technically, it depends on the country and their laws. But if you are born in that country, let's just look at America. If you are born in America, you are an American citizen. Again, nationality and citizenry is not really a debatable concept unless you have a country that has a law that makes it a debatable concept. But in America, if you're born in America, you are an American citizen. And this really cuts at the ADOS and the FBA because they like to, the very fact that ADOS and FBA keep referring to Caribbean brothers and sisters and continental descended brothers and sisters as immigrants means they're going against the great Uncle Sam that they love so much. Now I'm gonna pause for a second. Pan Mulatto is in the house. I'm gonna pull Pan Mulatto up. I hope he come here respectfully, because if not, I'm just gonna mute the mic. Pan Mulatto, you in the
Peace.
house.
Peace.
Peace.
Yeah, and thanks for having me up. I just wanted to make a brief comment about yesterday. The African was trying to tell you that, in his country, in his village, they really live in mud huts, and for some
Mm-hmm.
reason you got triggered and you tried to, basically stop him from telling you the truth and the reality about his culture. And
Mm-hmm.
respectfully, this reflects the lack of self-esteem of African American Pan Africans because they cannot handle the actual truth about Africa. And with all due respect, no disrespect to you, it was pathetic the way that you stopped that African from telling the truth about his country and his people that he know better than you will ever know.
You finish?
Definitely.
Okay. Now, um, I take issue with a couple of things. Number one, you free to have your opinion. It was pathetic. No, it wasn't. It was respect, and I stand on respect. Now, number two, you calling the brother an African. The brother called himself an American. So I don't care about that element of your statement. He came in and clearly identified himself as an American. Now, whether he was telling the truth or not, Mr. K says chaotic truth never said he was African. He always claimed to be an American. Thank you. So, but honestly, it doesn't even matter because let's say he is from Africa, like Pan Mulatto says. And let's say he is describing the village he lives in. I don't care because What I care about is respectful language. He said, I'm not even gonna repeat it. If you was here Tuesday, you heard what he said. And the fact remains, what he also said was he didn't want to travel to or visit anywhere in Africa except maybe Johannesburg because there is no infrastructure. And so when you couple that with his pejorative terms, yeah, I'm going to cut him off. And so that is what it is. I now, I could say it's pathetic for you to try to make sure people say nasty negative things about a place. But anyhow, let me see. Mr. K, Beat Active. Let me see who else is in. I think I missed a couple of comments.
Well, have you been to Africa, brother?
Yes, I have.
All right, me too. So let's have an honest dialogue. You know, and I know that there really are people living in mud huts in Africa right now. You know that, right?
Yes, I do.
So how's it disrespectful to tell the truth?
I want to engage with you, but even that question itself is not a genuine one. But let me say this. There are people who live on Skid Row in America. There are people eating out of trash cans in America, but I don't talk
I
about it.
agree.
And that's the truth. The truth is
Exactly.
poverty is widespread in America, but I don't talk about it. And if somebody was to come onto my channel and say, the reason I want to leave America, or the reason I want to come to America is because of all of the slums, I would be like, hold up, brother. Hold up, sister. Slow it down. We're not going to use that language.
And I hear your point.
So I
And
stand on what I'm considering respect and what I'm considering language, no matter who it is.
no, I hear your point, but allow me to ask you this. I'm
Uh-huh.
from Maryland. I'm from Maryland, close
Okay.
to a city called Baltimore. I'm from Columbia, Maryland, but next to Columbia, Maryland, you have Baltimore, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of urban blight. There are abandoned buildings. If someone
Uh-huh.
says, I don't want to go to Baltimore because of the dilapidated housing, I would
Mm-hmm.
never get offended because they're telling the truth. So when an
Okay, but
African tells the truth, with all due respect, I'll land my plane with this. When an African tells the truth about the state of affairs in Africa, really, instead of being triggered and emotional, no disrespect, brother, just accept the truth for what it is and realize that there's room for improvement.
okay, I see you muted your mic. Okay. Again, you can create your platform and carry it however you so desire, just as I will. Now, if I think that a person is saying something pejorative, if I think that a person is just trying to be shock jockish, I'm probably gonna cut them off. If I think the person is trying to be negatively stereotypical just for the shock jockism of it, I'm probably gonna cut them off. That's just what it is.
No, I hear you, but the part that you have to at least acknowledge, let's have the dialogue. You Pan African. Why you haven't moved to Africa, brother?
Where in the annals of Pan Africanism, where in the catalogs of Pan Africanism, where in the teachings of Pan Africanism do you have to move to the continent?
And you see,
You
I
do,
never.
hold on, I'm not
I thought
finished.
you was
You
asking me a
do
question.
know that Pan Africanism is an ideology. You do know that Pan Africanism is on par with Pan Europeanism, even though it's not a term of usage. You do know that there is Pan Europeanism, there is Pan Whiteism, where white people work together regardless of where they live. White people will work together in community, in economics, in government, and any other walk of life to ensure that white people get the things that white people want, to control and maintain the control and the power that white people want and try to control and obtain. And they don't say, well, in order for us to do this, I'm gonna have to move to France. The German is gonna have to go to England. The Englishman must come to America.
And
Now,
allow me to respond to you. And you'll notice I never claimed that you had to move to Africa. So instead of straw man my point, back to the question I asked you, with all due respect, why haven't you moved to Africa, brother?
I'm asking you, why do I need to? Who
And you heard
said
my
that I needed to? And
and
you're
you
saying that's not straw man. Why?
exactly. When did I say that you
Why do
needed
I
to?
need to move to Africa?
When did I say you needed to?
You say, why haven't you? Because I
Exactly.
haven't.
I'm asking
Because I
a
haven't.
question. I'm asking a
Because
question, brother.
okay, so
All right.
here's the direct answer for you.
Exactly.
I haven't moved to Africa because I haven't yet.
Exactly. So back to the focal point, brother, because I noticed that, and you notice I'm not being antagonistic at all. I'm trying to have a genuine discussion. It's always the Pan Africans in the U.S. that claim Africa is so great, but the vast majority of you will never move to Africa permanently. You'll go there as a tourist, just like Europeans do. Let's be honest, right?
Again, you are attaching a definition that does not exist. You
What did
do
I
not
define?
have to. There is absolutely
Uh-huh.
no definitional mechanism to attach travel and expatriationism and moving to the continent in order to practice, to understand, or to promote the ideology. If that's the case, all Christians need to carry themselves to Jerusalem. How
No,
come you
brother,
haven't gone to Jerusalem, my brother? How come you haven't
I'm
moved
not
to
Christian. I'm
Jerusalem,
not
my
Christian. I'm
Christian
not
or my Hebrew brother?
I'm not
How come
Christian, brother.
all of the
I'm not
black
Hebrew.
Muslims have not moved to Mecca?
And I don't know why you keep strawmanning me. I never said you had to move. Can we establish that? You notice I never said you had to move to Africa. Can you
No,
acknowledge that?
I don't.
I literally just said you don't have to move to Africa. Can you acknowledge that?
Can can you acknowledge that the assumption in your question is there needs to be a
But why are
movement?
you assuming? I'm telling you, you don't have to move anywhere. The point I'm making is,
Shut.
and maybe I said it in a way that you did not understand. No disrespect. Maybe I said it in an unintelligible way. My point is, usually, and you fit the case for this, there are Pan Africans in the US that claim Africa is so great and they get triggered and emotional and they get hurt when actual Africans tell them, no, there's a lot of room for improvement in Africa, and you get hurt by this. But in reality, you know that this is the truth because you yourself will never move to Africa. If it was so great, if it was better than the US in your mind, you would have been left. Be honest.
You finish?
Yeah, bro. I'm just trying to have a genuine dialogue with you.
Okay, well, we'll have a genuine dialogue. Number one, again, the notion that a Pan Africanist needs to, should, or the question that, well, how come you haven't? That is a disingenuous question. There is absolutely nothing that suggests that says that in order to be a Pan Africanist, you need to uproot yourself and move somewhere. So that's why I'm disagreeing with the premise of the question.
I hear
Now,
you. I hear you.
if we want to be specific and clear, autobiographically, is what you're asking. I have plans on moving to Africa. I am making arrangements to move to Africa. But any plan, any move, is not something that you could just say, whoop, I'm going. At least not in my mind. Now, I do know people. I know people who have said, I want to go to Africa, and they left the next day. And
Exactly, brother.
some
Exactly.
of them got there and were able to manage and make it a successful trip. And some of them got there and were not able to manage and make it a successful trip. But that's neither here nor there. So autobiographically, I'm in the process. But
And I
I
respect you
don't
for.
but I don't
All right,
have
go
to
ahead.
be in the process in order to be a Pan-Africanist.
And let me give you an example of what I mean, just so I'm not holding you to a standard that I don't hold myself to. Literally, you see my name, Pan Mulattoism. I'm a Pan Mulatto. I'm literally speaking to you from Puerto Rico. That's a mulatto Wakanda. I literally talk it like I walk it. I left Maryland, where I'm from, and moved to a mulatto Wakanda because in my mind, it's really best to be around my own people. Not only am I in Puerto Rico as I speak to you, I own real estate in other majority mulatto nations, such as Dominican Republic, such as Cape Verde, etc. So I'm not just online talking about how great my people is, but I want to live in a nation where we not the majority. I actually moved myself to a territory where we actually are the majority. And I say this in closing. I appreciate you not cutting me off. Really, to all my Pan Africans that really disrespect the U.S., really talk down on the U.S. If Africa is as great as you tell us, why don't you lead by example and move to Africa and build communities over there where your children don't have to worry about the school to prison pipeline? Where your children don't have to worry about being what's the brother down there in Mississippi, brother Nolan, you feel me,
Mm-hmm.
or George Floyd, or
Mm-hmm.
Freddie Gray. Really, you could go
Mm-hmm.
to Africa and change that right now. Separate yourself from that white man that you claim that you're oppositional to, or if you claim that he oppositional to you. Get away from him. You have options.
You land your plane? Okay. So I see your mic is muted. So again, if I mean that's cool that you moved to Puerto Rico. That's cool. And you call it a Wakanda. That's cool.
A mulatto Wakanda. Sorry for cutting you off. I
Okay.
apologize.
So again, I salute you for doing something that you think is the appropriate alignment with your ideology. All I'm simply saying is that's you. Nobody has the right or the power to constrict somebody else's ideology and say, well, you ain't really real with it. You don't do this. And so again, my examples are because if that is the yardstick or the metric, then again, then all Christians are fake because they live in America. They haven't moved to where Jesus lived. All Muslims in America are fake because they have not moved to where the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, got his start. And what I'm saying is the notion, the idea that that is a principle that should be lived up to, that should be presented, is ridiculous.
No, I hear you, but can you at least, uh, well, let me just acknowledge your points because I'm not dismissing anything you're saying. But please, are you able to address what I said? Let's speak about the school to prison pipeline, or the medical apartheid, or the genetic medical experimentation that African Americans are subjected to in the U.S., et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Don't you realize that you can end that today by literally moving yourself and your family to a better environment in a majority black country? Don't you realize this, brother? Or I'll articulate the question a different way. The average, and I mean what I'm about to say, the average African American living in Ghana has a higher standard of living than the average African American living in the U.S. The average African American in South Africa.
Um, you finished? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. I can't. I don't know what's going on with my screen. I can't see anything. But hold on. So I got
Yeah,
chaotic truth in here as well. But Pam Mulatto is also here. Let me just try to address something that he said. And this is what I mean. Now, I'm not going to try to be a contrarian. Say that the average African American living in Ghana has a better standard of living than the average African American in America. I would say, okay, so if I accept that as true, I don't have a problem with that being true. What I'm saying is, but I don't see that has anything to do with because what you're apples and oranges, you're mixing. So you're saying black Americans should move to Africa. Now, I will say this. I might agree with you, but number one, that doesn't even make you a Pan Africanist. Moving to Africa don't make Pan-Africanists. That's one. Now, I would love it. My own personal ideology. I would love it if we all left America and went to Africa. But that's just my own personal thing. And that's not because I'm Pan-Africanist. That's because I'm anti-Americanist, maybe. So again, I salute you. You went to Puerto Rico. You got out of the contiguous 48. It is up for whether you are Pan-Africanist or not. It is up for each individual to decide if they want, for all intents and purposes, do you want to deal with the devil that you know or the devil that you don't know? That's up for each individual person or family to make their decision. And whatever their decision is, does not necessarily mean they are in alignment with or not in alignment with Pan-Africanism.
No, I hear you, and I apologize. I got a phone call, so I'm not sure where I cut out at. But essentially, my question is, and I'll condense it: why stay in the U.S. and be sitting ducks for the majority population, which is the whites and the Latinos, to be able to subjugate you to whatever policies that they want to subjugate you to?
Well, again, that is a question that each person has to answer on their own. You've decided I'm out. There are thousands of African Americans who have moved to Ghana. There are thousands of African Americans who have moved
Exactly.
to Kenya. There are thousands of African Americans who have moved to South Africa and or to Rwanda or to Egypt there are thousands who have moved to the Philippines. There are thousands who have moved to Mexico. African Americans have left. There are white Americans who have left. Plenty of people leave. They leave whether they are Pan-African or Pan-Mexican or Pan anything. If you decide you want to leave the country that you were born in, whether somebody else feels the country you were born in is the best thing since sliced bread or not.
No,
What
I
do
hear
you
you. But I think, and I appreciate this respectful conversation. But I think that you're missing my point when I'm asking this: what's keeping you in the U.S.? And I'll use a metaphor. Essentially, and this is, I could be wrong, but in my estimation, the United States is the equivalent to a disloyal woman. She let other men inside your house. She's let other men wear your clothes. She gives other men your money. She lets other men drive your car. She has sex with other men. Do you still want this woman? Why do you still want this woman?
hold on one second. Listen, everybody on TikTok, I know y'all not gonna come over here because I know y'all love TikTok, but my phone's about to die, so I'm gonna just hit the power button. If you got the nerve to come over to youtube.com/Papa Perspective, we waiting for you over here. So with that, I'm gonna hit the power button, and I'll see y'all from TikTok. Now back to this thing over here, YouTube. Well, I think Pan Mulatto left. He might come back. I don't really had that much to say in response to what he said, aside from the fact that again, I would just double down. If you want to leave, you should leave. There are many reasons why people will not leave. Everybody can't afford to leave. That's just an economic fact. Everybody can't afford to leave. So that's one reason why people won't leave. The other reason is just basic fear. The devil you know is always more comforting than the devil that you don't know. So that's just two of my reasons for people in general. But I'm going to land my plane with that, and let's hear from Chaotic Truth.
Oh no, what's up, man? I just got done live streaming and I saw your title, No Mercy on Bonnets, Durags, and FBA Delineation. And I wanted to, I don't know, address that maybe. I heard what you guys were talking about previously, and you know me, man, I think you'd be a fool to leave America and go live in Africa. But yeah. But in terms of the durags and the bonnets, man, that's black culture. And I don't think that Tuskegee University, let alone any other HBCU, is in any position to tell those kids who are paying customers that they can't come to class with bonnets on. Harriet Tubman, she wore bonnets when she was, supposedly going around saving individuals from bondage, with her musket. So I think I look at it as black women continuing that culture of headdress. And in terms of the fellas, you know, I remember when I was a young guy, I had waves, and I used to go to class with my do-rag on, and I told people, hey man, this is part of my culture, man. I'm black. This is part of black culture. Because if you're not, the Arabs, they walk around with their Durkers on, and some of the Catholic girls used to walk around with their, I can't think of the name, that they would wear something over their head covering. So there's nothing wrong with that. Let those girls wear those bonnets, But if Harvard, Yale, Cornell, Princeton, all the Ivy Leagues, and even the Ivy League adjacent schools, like NYU, MIT, if they're not going to have a dress code, and those are the elite superior schools, then I don't think any I would get offended if I was a student at one of those HBCU schools. I'm like, man, who the hell are y'all to tell me what to do and what not to do? Stop. I'll just go to a white school. Man, mother F y'all. And there were people who called into my chat and who have who made the same statements. They went to HBCUs and they ended up leaving second year because why I gotta stay here when I could just go to a beautiful white school around white folks. So but go ahead, bro. Yeah, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, let me say this. I mean, if you want to be around beautiful white folks, please don't go to a HBCU. Please stay away from HBCU. Now, I went to a HBCU. Shout out to Dr. Dennis Osar Winkler for joining the chat. So, again, if you want to go to a PWI, please, by all means, go. If you get to an HBCU and you don't like the culture or you don't like the rules, please leave. HBCUs are not for everyone. There is the sense that HBCUs are supposed to represent something on a different level of excellence. Now, I support, for the most part, I'm not going to say 100%, I support the dress code policy, the changes, et cetera, for the most part. Not entirely. Yeah. I think, and what I said at the beginning was, if it were me, and clearly it's not, then I would at least allow some wiggle room in the cafeteria. I'll be like, okay, I would allow some wiggle room in the cafeteria. But what I also said is, now no, I would not allow wiggle room in the classroom. Now I went to two HBCUs. Now, but I got a bias. I never, as for brothers is concerned, I was never a do-rag wearer. So I got a bias. And I have to check my bias. I understand that there are brothers that might want to wear the do-rag. Just like I understand that there are sisters that might want to wear the bonnet. But what I said earlier in the show is, for me, I side with the administration because for the most part, when you go to a college, a university, especially when you go to an HBCU, you are supposed to learn some other things. You are supposed to learn some job qualifications. You are supposed to be able to present yourself. And even though Tuskegee is sort of new with this, it's really not new. They have a new president. He's making a proclamation because now he is the new sheriff in town, and he wants y'all to know what he about. But what I said was many HBCUs in particular have very much these same rules and have had them for a long time. Now, I never went to Hampton as a student, but Hampton is technically supposed to be known in the HBCU world as to have not only always had these kinds of rules, but to be a bit rigorous in enforcing them. Now, I can't validate that because I don't have the data, but that's just what some of the information suggests. But either way, yeah, clearly there will be people who are upset with the do-rag rule. But like anything else, like you are a paying customer at a college at a university, but you're also a paying customer when you walk into a restaurant. And restaurants have rules. You can't just show up any way you want to. The restaurant gets to decide whether they say this is a suit wearing establishment only, or whether they say no sneakers, or whether they say no hats, no shirt, no service, or what have you. All of these places where we, as the humans who visit them, we are the payers. We supply the money, but we can't walk through the door any way we want to.
To all you little nappy headed 18, 19-year-olds at Tuskegee who want to wear your durags, I suggest you go to a white school. That's that.
Me too.
That's that.
Me
That's
too.
that.
I would suggest if you don't want to follow
That's
the
that.
rules, then go somewhere where those rules are not there.
Yep.
It would be no different than if a bunch of Christians want to invade the mosque. We are here to pray for Jesus. No, that's not what this is about. You've come to the wrong place.
Oh, there you have it. There you have
There
it.
you have it.
There you have it.
Well, again, thank you for showing up and giving us some live interaction in your time and whatnot. I was about to close out. Anybody else wants to come in?
Well, I do want to ask you a question. What are those cartoons behind you?
I don't have any cartoons behind me.
Oh, well, what is that? Hieroglyphs. What is that?
What is what?
Do you know what those hieroglyphs are, sir?
Do I need to?
Yes.
Why? I know.
Well, I mean,
the reason I ask why is I know brothers and sisters, they get tattoos. They get tattoos of Asian symbols.
Yeah.
They don't know what the Asian symbols are.
They don't.
But they get them nonetheless.
They do.
I know people that wear Christian crosses.
That is true.
They think they know what it means.
And they don't know nothing. Yeah. So you don't know what the hieroglyphs mean either.
What I'm saying is you don't have to know what images in another image mean if you like the image. There are people who pay millions of dollars for a Basquiat.
A what?
A Basquiat. I don't know. I may have not said the name right. But so give me some other. Who are the European paintings? People pay millions of dollars for art and they don't know what the hell it is. They don't know what it stands for. They don't know what it represents.
Okay. I was just asking, but salute to you, man. Thank you so much for bringing me up, man.
Thank you for showing up. Appreciate you.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Peace, man. Have a good one.
You too. Peace. So there you go, ladies. Van Gogh. Yes, that's one. I couldn't get that. That's right, Gastino. I just like it. I like my statue. I like my wall art. And I don't have to know what it means. So, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, anybody else want to jump in? The link is still in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to get out of here. I think I did actually even give my closing. So, let me make sure I did. I closed out before Pam Mulatto came through. So, with that said, let me see, what did I miss? Yeah, I ain't missing anything. So that is, shout out to, let me see, somebody else just showed up. Satora says, I like it too. Thank you for that. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you. You have been brilliant to have a conversation with today. Please make sure that you hit the like button, you hit the share button, you subscribe. I do this every Tuesday and every Thursday at 5 p.m. Sometimes on Saturdays, me and my cousin, Dr. Dennis Saul Winkler, we go live as well. And you can catch us when we do that on either of our channels, Dr. Dennis or Saul Winkler. That's his. And I'm right here at the Proper Perspective. So this is, like I said, we have had a lively conversation. Oh, hold on. Let me see. I missed something. Oh, no. Mr. K says, he's not from Africa. There seems to be this thing where chaotic truth is from. I don't know where he's from. I just take the brother at his word. He says he's American. I've seen some videos myself, but you know, people can play with videos. But I have seen a video where it looked like he said he was from Gambia. But I also saw a video where it looked like he said he was from Nigeria. So I ain't got a clue. He comes here and he says he's an American. I honestly don't necessarily. Now, maybe somebody, before I get everybody here, you can help me with this. I honestly don't think it matters where he's from. Now, Pam Mulatto thinks it matters that he's really from Africa and he really knows that there are mud houses there. But anybody would know that. You can Google it. And so I don't necessarily think it matters if he's from Africa or he's from America or if he's a first generation or a second generation. He clearly loves America. FBA say they love America too. But if I'm wrong about that, anybody, you are more than welcome to help me understand why it would matter. And you can send me an email. You can drop a note on my comment field. So other than that, like I said, I have appreciated this time with you, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, pro-Black Pan-African family. I'm going to get up out of here. And I'm going to see you next Tuesday at 5 o'clock. If I don't see you this Saturday at 8. Peace.
Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection. And who